The Great Jedi Purge was a period of perpetual darkness for the Jedi Order, beginning with the execution of Order 66, and continuing with the Emperor's personal war on Knights of the Jedi practice. This war carried on until the Emperor no longer believed the Jedi to be a threat, which would not occur until around the time that the first Death Star was completed, just before the Battle of Yavin. The Jedi Purge marks the execution of 10,000 loyal Jedi Knights from across the Republic, and the birth of an empire. However, a common misconception is that Order 66 and the Jedi Purge are one and the same. However, Order 66 was the first stage of the Great Jedi Purge, and the Jedi Purge was an event that carried on for the next 20 years. Therefore, it did mark an ending. So, who was the last Jedi to be killed during this Great Jedi Purge? Which Knight of the Order survived the longest, and before Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was the last remaining Jedi Knight that Darth Vader personally executed? Today, students of the galaxy will talk about the story and explore the last moments of Jedi Master Anya Kuro, one of my personal favorite Jedi Masters, and the last Jedi of the Great Jedi Purge. A brief disclaimer though, is parts of this story only exist within Legends continuity, and although we cannot confirm it as of now, there is a strong possibility that much of this story also exists in modern Star Wars canon. But we will be sure to differentiate which parts are confined only to the extended universe and non-canon lore. Now, let us begin with the tale of Jedi Master Anya Kuro. Anya Kuro was a particularly unorthodox yet highly devoted Jedi initiate who developed a tendency to integrate darker practices into her Jedi teachings, channeling her own latent aggression and malicious thoughts into her training similar to that of Mace Windu. Contrary to popular belief, Mace Windu was not the only Jedi to utilize a purple lightsaber during the Modern Republic era, as Anya Kuro also developed a purple kyber crystal due to her more aggressive tendencies and harsher practices. Anya Kuro danced close to the dark side, yet never fully embracing it, standing just like Mace Windu, staunchly against it as a servant of the light side. In Legends continuity, Mace Windu's kyber crystal was gifted to him by the inhabitants of Hurricane, the planet Hurricane, which explains the distinct amethyst coloration. In canon continuity, however, we know that a Jedi develops a personal connection to their crystal that determines its coloration, and more open-minded or non-traditional Jedi had a tendency to develop unique saber colors. This is specifically prevalent in Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Academy, where his students were taught to be much more open-minded, and thus his students had an incredibly diverse range of different blade colors. Since we do not know if Anya Kuro developed a purple lightsaber in this same way in canon, this detail might only exist in Legends continuity. However, the similarities between Mace Windu and Anya Kuro cannot be ignored. This tendency to deviate from standard Jedi practices also allowed Anya to develop several different force abilities that were not common for most of the Jedi Order, including the ability to influence and manipulate various forms of plant life and vegetation from across various systems across the galaxy, all things that would aid in her survival post-Order 66. Anya also learned how to manipulate the light around her, light itself, bending it in sort of a pseudo-invisibility cloak, rendering her invisible and allowing her an advantage as future Jedi spies. But more on that in just a moment, and how this contributed to Order 66 and the Jedi Purge. In her early years as a Jedi, Anya spent her days as a knight traversing the galaxy in search of Force-sensitive children that might have been missed by the traditional Jedi screening practices, as this was her role as a Jedi seeker. Anya would even discover a young boy on the world of Soraya who would later become a prominent member of the Jedi High Council. And although she was powerful, Anya Kuro wasn't without her weaknesses. One of her earliest challenges as a Jedi Knight was negotiating the relocation of a young Jedi, Ki-Adi-Mundi, by convincing the people of Ki-Adi-Mundi to let her take him back to Coruscant to be trained as a Jedi Master. While speaking with Ki-Adi's father, a gang of raiders arrived to steal the family's harvest, putting Mundi in particular danger due to his status as a male. On Ki-Adi-Mundi's homeworld, the birth rate of females to males was 20-1, meaning that their species was severely crippled by an inability to procreate, and this meant that the bandits had a tendency to abduct young males, as males were vital to the continuation of the species. After the attack, Ki-Adi-Mundi's father agreed to send him away to join the ranks of the Jedi Knights for his own safety, leading to one of the earliest successes that Anya Kuro had under her time as a Jedi Knight. It was also during this era that Anya Kuro would become renowned for her skills in lightsaber combat and her abilities to use the Force in very unorthodox ways. And because of her harsh nature, over the years, she was developed into the knight whom the Jedi Masters would send their problematic trainees. Initiates who were particularly aggressive aggressive or defiant would be assigned to Anya Kuro in order to channel their more resilient nature. And over the years, Anya trained some of the most aggressive Jedi Knights of her generation. Some masters believed her practices and training methods to be particularly cruel and sometimes outright brutal and wrong. But many of the Padawans Anya Kuro trained grew into successful Jedi Knights, though not all of them were successful, unfortunately. One of her most notable failures during her time as a knight included taking on the Padawan by the name of Aurra Sing, who was believed to be a problematic case by the rest of the Jedi Order. This led Aurra and many of her Padawans to inherit this darkness to such a degree that by the age of 9, Aurra Sing still had not been promoted to the rank of Padawan. This was due to her defiance and inability to listen to her masters. After being abducted by space pirates, Aurra Sing was convinced that her master had sold her and grew into a particularly bitter nature towards this single Jedi master, ultimately developing into a prolific bounty hunter with a distaste of Jedi specifically. It was following this event that Anya Kuro realized how harsh she had been to so many Jedi Padawans, and believed that she and herself had partially embraced the dark side. Fearing the dark side itself, she exiled herself to a faraway planet full of vegetation, where she pondered on the Force for many years. This is when the Clone Wars broke out. During the Clone Wars, Anya Kuro elected to assist the Republic as a spy rather than a Jedi general, and embarked on numerous quests to verify rumors and collect intelligence on the Confederacy of Independent Systems in favor for the Jedi and the Republic. She continued to serve the Order during the calamity of the Clone Wars, using her newfound alignment to realize that spying on her enemies and gathering information was just as useful as being a fully formed general. This is why no clone troopers were around Anya Kuro when Order 66 was executed, and she was able to go back to the planet Kofgren 5, where she had spent most of her time in exile pondering on the light side and the Jedi, and had mastered the planet so intricately that no stormtrooper or member of the newly found Empire, be that Inquisitors or even Lord Vader himself, was able to locate her for nearly 20 years. Anya Kuro had previously spent 12 years in this part of the galaxy during her hiatus and her exile. She was intimately familiar with this particular system, which allowed her to adapt much more easily to a brand new environment, as well as use the ability to influence light itself to keep her presence hidden in the Force. Here, Anya Kuro lived as a hermit for the duration of the Galactic Empire's reign, existing in isolation for the greater part of 2 decades, until unfortunately, the Emperor's hand, Mara Jade, which is Star Wars Legends, was able to track her down. However, even Mara Jade, being an incredibly prolific duelist and lightsaber wielder, refused to engage Anya Kuro, as he knew that Anya Kuro was a prize that Darth Vader wanted for some time, being one of the most powerful Jedi Masters that were unaccounted for following Order 66. Therefore, upon hearing of her confirmed survival, Vader ventured to the system immediately. When he arrived, the two shared a philosophical conversation as Anya Kuro was done hiding from the Dark Lord. They talked about the nature of evolution and extinction, and although Anya Kuro had largely resigned herself to death, she still elected to put up a fight against the Dark Lord. The two of them engaged in a very heated lightsaber duel, with Anya Kuro putting up an incredible last stand against the Dark Lord, as although she knew she would die regardless, she wanted to make Darth Vader and Anakin try. This is also another important note. It is highly implied that Anya Kuro sensed that Darth Vader and Anakin were one and the same. She truly made Darth Vader push his limits in the Force, and nearly killed him outright. However, Vader was simply too strong. After pinning Kuro beneath a tree, Vader executed the last Jedi that he would kill before his duel with Obi-Wan, with Darth Sidious himself later proclaiming that with the death of Anya Kuro, this marked the end of the Great Jedi Purge, and the last of the Jedi to be killed, deeming all the Jedi that remained insignificant fools of a bygone era. And therefore, within records, Anya Kuro marks the official end of the Jedi Purge. But anyway, students of the Force, what are your thoughts on Jedi Master Anya Kuro, and why Darth Vader wanted to hunt her down and kill her personally? What are your thoughts on this unorthodox Jedi Master? And had you heard of her before this video? As always, students of the Force, thank you so much for watching. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.